Hello, Facebook Live. Yes, this is a different setting. I am at home. That's just how life goes. I'll just wait as a couple of you guys fill in. Genesis, hey, Cindy Taylor. Genesis had a spill on the scooter on Sunday before Super Bowl, and she fractured her wrist, and so she's getting her cast here soon, and so I'm gonna stay home, watch the boys while Jamie takes Genesis to go get her cast. So doing this at a different setting, but that way you guys get to see that I'm real, and I got a messy kitchen, and this is how life goes, and I'm excited to do this with you. Man, it's good to see you guys jumping in. Man, like usual, anytime I do this, I need your help. So if you guys can comment on something that I say that maybe could use some clarification, which, if you know me, happens all the time. Hey, Theo. You guys can comment the actual text. I'm going to talk about Mark chapter 9, verses 42 through 50. So not just the reference, but if you could actually cut and paste those verses and put those in the comments, that would be super helpful. And again, if you do have questions about the text, by all means, ask them. I will be the first to tell you that Jesus is often confusing. And so if you have questions, you're not alone, and we'll kind of figure this out together. It's good to see you guys jumping in. And so, yeah, again, this content gets pretty serious. And so I'm glad that we could do this together. I've been having a lot of fun with this, and wanted to try at a little bit different setting, even though I wanted to keep the same time. So Wednesdays at 1:30. Even if you got different stuff going on, this is still going to happen. Case in point, I'll do it at home or wherever I need to make it happen. All right. A couple other things before I jump into it. I do a study through Mark, as I've been doing at Go Church and with you on Facebook Live at PHSC, the Spring Hill campus. That's pretty cool. So if you're a student, or if you just want to come stop by, on Tuesdays from 12:30 to 1:30, I'm doing a study through Mark. And so any support I can have be there will be awesome. If nothing else, just pray for me, because that's a great mission field, and I want to continue to figure out how to tell people about Jesus at the school. I think she doesn't know that she's on camera right now, but that's okay. All right, so let's do this. I think you guys are in here with me. We're going to jump in. Mark chapter 9, again, verses 42 through 50. And this stuff's pretty serious. Okay, let's get to it. Jesus says this: "If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them if a large millstone was hung around their neck and they were thrown into the sea." We'll just stop right there. Anytime Jesus uses harsh language, I get a little concerned and a little worried. And so Jesus is talking specifically in the context of this passage. He's talking about little kids, which I know a lot about. But also, he's honestly talking about the disciples, because they can be childish, and so they play a role in this too. But anyone that causes one of them to stumble, he takes pretty serious. It would be better for them to have a large rock around their neck and be thrown into the sea to drown. And that's pretty serious. So that means Jesus takes, anytime someone causes another little one or a believer or a Christian to stumble, it would be better for them to be thrown into the ocean to drown. Anytime a Christian causes another Christian to stumble, I would say especially kids, I would say especially those that are really impressionable, or that are open to anything they hear, that might not know how to decide what's true or not. If you cause them to stumble, this is a pretty severe warning. Jim Rudmile had a pretty cool illustration this morning, where he talked about how everyone might know that there's the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but they kind of all know without really knowing there's always a fifth, and that's their own gospel. That's what are they communicating with their life. Like, what you say about Christianity can be known by how you live it out. If you live with a lot of peace and love and hope in your life, then that would make it pretty clear to other people that you believe the gospel of Jesus is full of love and hope and peace. But if you live with a lot of anger and frustration and bitterness, and you complain and nothing seems to be going well for you, then other people might think your version of Jesus, your version of Christianity, that's my sister, I got distracted, Jacqueline, what's up, that's so cool. Man, I love my sister. That's part why Facebook Live is fun, because you get distracted and you get to see people that you love. This is just one of those things where you got to really consider what you do and how that impacts other people. In fact, that's what's kind of cool about my sister literally watching this, is that I'm no different with her than any other person, because I know my actions, they're pretty loud. And I'm trying to figure out how best to use that. And honestly, even more than for like my little sister, this is true for my kids. Jude's in there taking a nap, kind of. He's falling asleep, I think. Grayson's in the living room playing Nintendo Switch. Hashtag how to raise kids with screens, man. I don't know. That's a struggle is real. But I care about what they see. I think if I want my kids to know Jesus, they're going to have a good framework based off of the way I love my kids. There's a lot of people that have a hard time understanding who God is, and they get a picture based off of their parents, specifically their dad. I remember as a youth pastor, a lot of kids had a struggle with the idea of God being present because they never had a dad that was. Like, what you do and how you live your life is so loud to other people, and it shares a message of Jesus. So take a little more time to think about what your actions are like and how other people perceive that as a Christian, because it's a big deal to Jesus. Like, that's kind of scary to me, that not is it like, hey, maybe think about this a little bit more. Maybe think about what you do before you do it, because you never know who's watching. No, this is like, hey, if you cause one of my kids to stumble, it'd be better for you to be drowned in the ocean. Like, and then I think about what kind of miscommunication the world has had when it comes to Christianity, and what messages some of us have made it seem like Christians are all about. Like, guys, this is something we need to really consider. What you do is pretty loud to other people. And so I hope that when you say yes to following Jesus, you actually plan on following him, because that example matters. But it gets worse. Jesus wants to talk a little bit more about this idea. And so jumping back in at verse 43, Jesus says, if your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life maimed than with two hands going into hell, where the fire never goes out. And if a foot causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life crippled than to have 2 feet and be thrown into hell. And if your eye causes you to stumble, pluck it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into hell, where the worm that eats doesn't ever die and the fire is not quenched. Jesus talks more than anybody else. He talks a lot about hell, and hell's a real place, a real thing. And he warns us a lot about it. And I don't know how much you know about that. I know as a pastor, as a preacher, I tend to not want to talk about hell, because I think people just assume that as soon as you bring up that word, that means I'm judgmental and want you to go there, I think. I don't know everyone's reasons, but I know I've had reasons before to just kind of not bring it up, but that's not fair, because Jesus does a lot. In fact, one of the other warnings from this text that matters to me and for any of you that ever speak on his behalf is we have a even more severe warning that, we'll be judged by anything that we teach. And so what we do and what we say about Jesus really matters, because especially if it's contrary to what he said to do, that is not good for his ministry, and he is fiercely protective of the people that want to know about his love. So my goodness, this is something that we cannot avoid, that hell is a real place. Now in this text specifically, he describes hell with fire, and I know there's a debate if there's an actual lake of fire, if that's a metaphor. I don't know, but I would go with the metaphor. But there's something I want to mention about that. I think one of the reasons why I read that fire and a lake of fire and that might be used to describe hell is because that's one of those elements, those things that disintegrates, that destroys. And so fire does that to things. Now, literally, fire, once it eats its fuel, it goes out. But hell, the fire of hell would never go out. So there's a difference. And again, I think it makes a good case for that being a metaphor. But the point being, hell is a place where the fire, and however that works, for all of eternity disintegrates what it can get a hold of. And that's a problem. That's not good. Another way to kind of look at it is that someone say, it would be like your couch having a match dropped on it and part of the arm of your couch catching on fire. Maybe if you just do nothing about it, you'll think, okay, it's just the arm of the couch, it's not a big deal. But obviously, if you do nothing, then it could engulf the entire couch in a fire. And then after that, it can get your whole house destroyed. And so hell, like sin, has this connection where if you do nothing about it and just let it go on, it will cause more damage than if you stop the problem right away. And so case in point, if your eye causes you to sin, man, don't let that just take over your body. Deal with it, because you'll be better off if you go in with one eye instead of hell with both. And so this is something Jesus takes really seriously, especially in the context of how we share our faith with people. That if with one hand you're deceiving the kingdom of God and pretending you're one person, on the other hand you're praising God on Sunday morning at church, making it look like you have it figured out, you'd be better off just raising both one way or the other, because Jesus cares a lot about your witness. And so this is something that just kind of really gets my attention, is that hell's a real place. And when we choose to try and walk on both sides and to do things a different way that suits our own pleasure, to where we can get a little bit of God and a little bit of sin and a little bit of whatever makes us happier, that doesn't work. That never works. And even more importantly, that hell is a real place and that people go there. And it is all of eternity the worst pain you can comprehend. And that, to me, it's interesting, because if a lot of people don't like talking about it, it actually takes away from the love of Jesus. Because if there is no hell and you believe in Jesus, then when he dies for your sin and has to encounter hell, then it doesn't make his gift all that special. But if there is a hell and it's real and it's more painful than we can comprehend, and we know that Jesus went there for us, that we didn't have to go there, that kind of changes some things. And so even though hell is a bad place, it makes Jesus' love all the more special, all the more powerful. And again, I don't know everything there is to know about it. I don't want to go there, and I don't want you to go there. But I know if we don't talk about it, if we don't talk that there's a reality to the fact that people go there, then I think we're missing something. And if we really did care for people, we'd make sure we tell them, hey, Jesus is your way, and I want you to know that. And so Jesus gets serious about sin, and Jesus gets serious about hell, and I think we as the church should as well. But at the same time, and if you know me, that can't ever be more loud than the love that comes and overpowers it. I have hope. I know the fire that burns forever is real, but I also know the light that shines for all of eternity wins. And that's got to be the loudest part of our message. Because that's so important. In fact, I kind of think Jesus goes that way to kind of end this passage, verses 49 and 50. Everyone will be salted with fire. Verse 50, salt is good, but if salt loses its saltiness, how can you make it salty again? Have you salt among yourselves, and be the peace with each other. And so Jesus brings up salt, which is interesting because verse 49, everyone will be salted with fire. But then in verse 50, salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? Like, he's using it on both sides. And I think because salt has a preservative to it, and so again, it has great components that we can use with our food to keep things preserved. And so I think him using it in verse 49, that everything that will be salted with fire in hell. And so this is this idea, I think, that like that fire lasts a lot longer than you think it does, because salt will keep something going longer. If that's what that verse means. But I definitely think I get how it applies in verse 50, that salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, it can't really be salty again. Have salt among yourselves, because of those components, again, that salt is a natural preservative, that it does things to make everything better, and we're called, Jesus says, to be salt and light of the earth, and that's important. But I think he brings this up because he knows that matters, again, for your witness. One of the things I read, this is kind of interesting to me, is that in the area Jesus would have talked about this, and in the Sea of Galilee, in the Dead Sea, like the salt of the Dead Sea, that is a highly sought after kind of fertilizer tool, right? So if you add that salt to any kind of filth to make a better fertilizer, it really changes the compound of it and makes it really special to be a pretty good fertilizer. And so Jesus, I think in a way, is making a point to say, hey, listen, even in the filth that you might enter into, if you bring the salt, you can make beautiful things grow out of something that's disgusting. If you bring the hope of Jesus, if you're able to live a life and a testimony and you bring it into dark places, good things can grow out of that. And I think that all fits into the context of this passage, again, making a case for your testimony, your walk by faith is a powerful example to other people. So much so to where as salt would keep things would keep things healthy and help the longevity, but in a lot of other ways salt can help things grow, that you are like that as well. You keep things powerfully put together and you help make things grow that might not have been able to. Because at the end of the day, your faith is seen by other people, for good or for bad. For good or for bad. And so my kids in this house, there's been times in that kitchen behind you where I've raised my voice, and I don't know how much of a good example of Jesus I'm showing my kids. And that's on me. And Jesus says, hey, those are my kids first. And you have to remember that what you do in front of them, that matters. Do not cause them to stumble. Don't paint a picture of the love that you're trying to describe Jesus to be and make it seem like he's angry all the time. And so I have to be a loving father. I have to be the best version I can be because he matters, man, a lot. And I don't want to waste my time with not doing all that I can. But not just him, all the kids, all the little kids, all the people, everyone that has an opportunity to hear Jesus, your testimony is loud and it matters. And so think about how you treat other people. Think about how you demonstrate Christianity. Are you filled with hope and with love and with joy? Because people see that, and that matters to people. And so I hope you would think about how that affects you, and take some time to think about what example you're setting and how that works. That's the stuff I wanted to talk about. There's so much more in this book I wanted to get to. Again, this is fun for me. I want to continue to figure out how to do this better. If you have questions or comments or things that might help me, or questions I can answer for you, I'm here for you. I'm a part of Go Church, as you know, and so that's an environment where we grow together. And so it's good to see you in a way on video, but I hope you've got people in your life that you can talk with. And so there's a great group that meet at Deltona Elementary School on Sunday mornings. And at Go Church is just a great place to grow. And I hope you've got people that you can talk to about your faith, and more importantly, that they can see your faith and you can act it out in real life. And so, man, this is good. I hope you heard my words, and that those truths, those things, that the fact that Jesus takes hell very serious, for me, that's a good reason to follow him, because he takes it very serious, because he knows the cost it would take for him to overcome it for my sake. So I'll follow him because he takes it serious. I follow Jesus because if he cares that much about my example to other people, how much more did he pour into his example for me? How much intentionality did Jesus have for my sake? How much did he do that would affect the way I grow? Jesus cares a lot about that, and so I would follow him because he cares about me following him. He cares about what the example looks like and how best I can approach him and to be accessible. Man, I just am so grateful for him, and I don't ever want to stop following him, and I hope you don't either. You guys are awesome. I hope I got everything out, and that was clear. Thanks for tuning in. Again, every Wednesday at 1:30 we'll be here. Man, this is good. God bless you guys. We'll catch up later. All right, bye-bye.